Life doesn't owe you a thing. Read that again. Nothing in this world is promised to you. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is handed over just because you exist. The world doesn't pay out on good intentions. It doesn't reward half-hearted effort. It doesn't hand over trophies for participation. That's the lie you've been sold since childhood, and it's the poison that keeps you weak. Winners get everything because they earn it. Losers get nothing because they don't. That's the unfiltered truth. You can hate it, deny it, or resist it, but you can't escape it. The harsh reality is that results are the only currency life respects. Not your dreams, not your excuses, not your potential, only results. That's why you can spend years talking about what you want, what you're planning, what you're working on, but until you execute and deliver, the world doesn't care. Nobody remembers the almosts, and nobody writes history books about people who nearly made it. The world doesn't crown effort, it crowns achievement. You want everything: wealth, recognition, freedom, respect, but you don't want to pay the price. You tell yourself you're working hard, but deep down you know there are days you coast. You know you've cut corners. You know you've let comfort win, and comfort is the silent killer of greatness. Comfort robs you of hunger. Comfort makes you soft. Comfort makes you settle for less than what you're capable of. Winners know this. That's why they strip comfort out of their lives. That's why they push past exhaustion, past doubt, past fear, because they understand that the pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts forever. The reason winners deserve everything is because they've given everything. They've sacrificed what you weren't willing to sacrifice. They've stayed consistent when you gave up. They've taken risks while you played it safe. They've pushed through failures that would have broken you. That's why they stand at the top and you don't. You see the glory but ignore the grind. You envy their rewards but dismiss their sacrifices. And that's why you'll never get what they have until you adopt the same mindset. You keep telling yourself it's unfair. You tell yourself the rich were lucky, the successful had connections, the strong had advantages. But here's the brutal truth. Excuses don't build empires. Excuses don't win championships. Excuses don't write legacies. Work does. Sacrifice does. Relentless discipline does. And that's exactly why winners deserve everything they've earned. Because while you were complaining, they were working. While you were hesitating, they were moving. While you were fantasizing, they were executing. You have to face a reality that hurts. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to hand you what you think you deserve. The world doesn't care how badly you want it. It only cares what you're willing to do for it. Every winner understands this. That's why they're ruthless with their time, ruthless with their habits, ruthless with their standards. They don't negotiate with their goals. They don't compromise with their vision. They don't take days off because they feel tired or uninspired. They move regardless. They act regardless. And that's why they get everything. The most shocking truth of all is this. Life is brutally fair. Winners get rewarded because they've earned it. Losers get nothing because they haven't. If you're not where you want to be, it's not because life cheated you. It's because you cheated yourself. You took the easy path. You gave in to fear. You gave up too soon. And now you live with the consequences. That's why you look at winners with envy instead of pride. That's why you resent their success instead of studying it. You'd rather believe they're lucky than admit you're lazy. But deep down you know the truth. They deserve everything because they've done what you haven't. The only way forward is to stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending that life is unfair. Stop acting like you're owed something just because you want it. You don't deserve anything until you earn it. And the moment you accept that, the moment you stop fighting reality and start playing by its rules, everything changes. Winners aren't special. They're simply relentless. They're willing to suffer longer, fight harder, and sacrifice deeper. That's why they win. That's why they deserve everything. You think effort should count. You think trying is enough. But trying doesn't move the scoreboard. Effort without results is invisible. Nobody claps for someone who almost finished the race. Nobody writes songs about the person who nearly won. Life is binary in its judgment. You either did it or you didn't. There's no gray area. That's why you're frustrated. That's why you feel overlooked. You confuse effort with execution, intention with impact, and dreams with reality. The world doesn't care how much you wanted it. The world only cares if you did it. Every time you say, "I tried my best," you're soothing yourself with a lie. If your best didn't produce results, then your best wasn't enough. Harsh? Yes. True? Absolutely. Because in this game of life, only outcomes matter. Nobody counts the hours you put in if you didn't produce. Nobody celebrates the sweat if it didn't build something. Effort without results is wasted motion. It's running in circles and calling it progress. Look at your own life. How many times have you convinced yourself that trying was a win? How many times have you given yourself credit for intentions instead of outcomes? You say you worked hard, but did you really? Or did you stop when it got uncomfortable? Did you take shortcuts when no one was watching? Did you convince yourself that showing up was enough? That's why you're stuck. That's why nothing changes. You're measuring yourself by effort while the world measures you by results. The brutal truth is this: the scoreboard doesn't track almost. Success isn't graded on effort. It's graded on what you delivered. You don't get rewarded for nearly closing the deal, nearly writing the book, nearly building the business. Almost doesn't pay the bills. Almost doesn't create freedom. Almost doesn't command respect. Winners deserve everything because they finish. They don't stop at almost. They don't let effort be the excuse. They keep pushing until the outcome is undeniable. Here's the part you don't want to hear. Nobody cares how hard your journey was. Nobody cares how tired you are. Nobody cares how many times you failed along the way. People only see what you achieved. They don't care about the hours, they care about the result. That's why winners are celebrated and losers are forgotten. It's not cruelty, it's reality. The world runs on outcomes, not stories. You want proof? Look around. History only remembers those who finished, not those who tried. Nobody talks about the second-place finisher decades later. Nobody writes biographies about those who almost made it. The spotlight doesn't shine on effort, it shines on results. And that's the part you keep avoiding. You're addicted to the comfort of telling yourself you tried, so you don't have to face the truth that you failed. But failure isn't the problem. Settling for trying is. The harsh realization you need to swallow is this: if you're not winning, your effort is irrelevant. Stop using effort as a shield to protect your ego. Stop pretending that trying hard is noble when it produces nothing. Results are what build respect. Results are what build power. Results are what winners get rewarded for. And that's why they deserve everything they have. Shift your mindset. Stop asking, "Did I try hard enough?" Start asking, "Did I deliver?" Because at the end of the day, effort is the starting line, not the finish line. Everyone tries. Very few finish. Winners finish. That's the difference. That's why they get it all while you're still sitting on the sidelines convincing yourself that trying was enough. So burn this into your mind: effort doesn't equal reward. Results equal reward. Until you deliver outcomes, you don't deserve anything. And the moment you accept that, you stop hiding behind effort and start demanding more from yourself. That's when life starts shifting. That's when you begin moving toward what you say you want. Until then, winners will keep collecting everything you dream about, and they'll deserve every bit of it. You want success, but you expect it to be fair. You think life should hand out rewards evenly, as if effort guarantees equality. But life isn't fair, and it never will be. Winners deserve everything because they did what others refused to do. They paid a price most people aren't willing to pay. They sacrificed when others wanted comfort. They stayed disciplined when others gave in to weakness. That's why they earn it all, and that's why you don't have what you want. Because deep down, you still expect to get rewarded without bleeding for it. Here's the ugly truth. The universe doesn't care about balance. It cares about winners. It doesn't distribute rewards to make sure everyone feels included. It gives everything to the ones who prove they could handle it. You want the mansion, the freedom, the respect? Then prove you can carry it. Because right now, you can't. That's why you're not holding it. Life tests people by pressure, and if you crumble under small struggles, don't even dream of the rewards of a winner. Look around you. The people at the top, the ones you envy, they weren't given that life for free. They weren't lucky. They outworked, outlasted, and outdisciplined the rest. That's why they own it. They didn't stop at average. They didn't settle for good enough. They crushed every excuse while you cling to yours like a safety blanket, and you hate them for winning, when the truth is, they just wanted it more than you. Stop believing the lie that winners stole something from you. They didn't take your chance. They took their chance seriously while you wasted yours. They deserve everything because they carried the burden you ran from. Every late night, every rejection, every risk they took, that was the toll life demanded. They paid it. You didn't. That's why they collect, and you complain. Here's a hard pill to swallow. Your frustration with winners comes from the mirror, not them. They remind you of what you could have been if you weren't so soft, if you weren't so distracted, if you weren't so quick to quit. That jealousy you feel isn't about them, it's about you. It's the gap between who you are and who you know you could be, but instead of facing that, you label them lucky. You call them privileged. You find excuses to explain away their success, because that's easier than admitting you didn't earn what they did. There's nothing fair about success, and that's the point. Life weeds out the weak by demanding more than most people are willing to give. That's why winners stand alone at the top. The climb required them to burn bridges of comfort. It required them to kill off distractions. It required them to sacrifice years in silence. If you're not willing to make those sacrifices, don't expect the rewards. Winners don't owe you fairness. They owe themselves everything they fought for. And here's a mindset shift that will change everything. Stop looking at winners with envy and start looking at them as proof. Proof that it's possible. Proof that someone was willing to pay the price and collect the prize. Instead of asking, why do they deserve it? I'd ask, why don't I? Because if you really strip away the lies, the answer will sting. You don't deserve it because you haven't proven you can handle it. This is where reality kicks you in the teeth. Winners don't get what they want because the world is kind. They get it because they earned it, because they endured, because they were relentless when everyone else caved. And until you match that level of relentlessness, don't expect to taste what they taste. Life doesn't care about fairness. It cares about results. Winners gave life the results it demanded, and that's why they deserve everything. So, the next time you feel bitterness towards someone who has more, remember this: they paid the price you refused to pay. They proved their worth when you hesitated. They put in the years you weren't willing to. And until you start doing the same, you'll always be watching from the sidelines, convincing yourself that life is unfair. But the truth is, it's brutally fair. Winners earned it. You didn't. That's the difference. You keep waiting for someone to hand you permission. You keep waiting for validation, for approval, for the world to pat you on the back and say, now you're ready. But that day never comes. Winners don't wait for permission. They take what's theirs. They don't need applause to move. They don't need reassurance to act. They move because they decided. That's the brutal truth you keep avoiding. You don't lack opportunities, you lack decisiveness. And indecision is the silent killer of dreams. Every time you hesitate, someone else takes the chance. Every time you overthink, someone else executes. Every time you drown in doubt, someone else pulls the trigger. And then you look up and wonder why they're winning while you're still stuck in the same place. The answer is simple. They acted while you hesitated. Winners deserve everything because they move faster, they move bolder, and they move without begging for someone else's approval. Here's the reality you don't want to face. Hesitation costs you more than failure ever will. Failure teaches. Hesitation rots. Failure gives you data, lessons, scars that make you sharper. Hesitation gives you nothing but regret. And regret is the heaviest weight you'll ever carry. Winners know this. That's why they act. They'd rather fail fast and learn than sit still and watch the world pass them by. That's why they climb. That's why they collect everything while you sit paralyzed, convincing yourself you're not ready. But here's the harsh truth. You'll never be ready. Nobody ever feels ready before they win. Readiness is a lie people use to delay action. Winners don't wait to feel ready. They start unprepared. They adapt. They grow under fire. That's why they rise, because they were willing to look foolish, to take hits, to stumble forward when everyone else stayed frozen. And that's the mindset shift you must adopt. Stop waiting to be prepared. Start moving and let preparation catch up. Winners didn't walk into the fight knowing every move. They figured it out in real time. They let the pressure mold them. They let the risks sharpen them. And because they acted, they built momentum. That's what you're missing. You want certainty before you move, but certainty doesn't exist. Action creates certainty. Motion creates clarity. Winners understand that, losers ignore it. Think about this. How many chances have you wasted because you sat on your hands, waiting for the perfect time? How many doors closed while you were still thinking about it? How many times did someone else take what could have been yours because you waited for permission? Those moments are gone. You don't get them back. That's the cost of hesitation. Permanent loss. And here's the sting: you did it to yourself. Stop pretending that life is withholding opportunities from you. Life throws opportunities at everyone, but only the bold catch them. Winners grab the door before it slams shut. They don't care if they're underprepared. They don't care if they look stupid. They move, and that's why they win. That's why they deserve everything. Because while you were busy doubting, they were busy collecting. The shocking truth you need to face is this: nobody is coming to rescue you from hesitation. Nobody is going to beg you to take your own life seriously. Nobody is going to force you to win. You either act or you stay broke, stuck, and bitter. That's it. Winners deserve everything because they rescued themselves from hesitation. They decided, they acted, they owned the outcome. So burn this into your mind: hesitation is poison. It kills dreams quietly while you convince yourself you're being cautious. Stop confusing fear with wisdom. Stop mistaking delay for strategy. The only way forward is through action. Winners know it. That's why they're eating while you're starving. They didn't wait for permission. They took it. And until you do the same, you'll always be on the outside looking in, wishing for what they've already claimed. You want the rewards, but you avoid the pain. You crave the glory, but you run from the grind. And that's why you're stuck where you are. Winners deserve everything because they embraced what you keep avoiding: suffering. They didn't just tolerate discomfort, they sought it out. They lived in it. They made it their companion while the rest of the world chased ease. That's the dividing line. Most people worship comfort, but winners see comfort as the enemy. Here's the harsh truth you refuse to face. Your comfort zone is a prison. It whispers safety, but it kills growth. It tells you to stay where it's warm, but it robs you of power. Comfort convinces you that tomorrow will be the day you start, but tomorrow never comes. And while you're sinking deeper into that soft trap, winners are out there tearing themselves apart, building resilience through pain. That's why they collect everything. They've built armor while you've built excuses. Discomfort isn't a punishment, it's the price of entry. Winners understand this. That's why they train when it hurts. That's why they work when they're tired. That's why they push when they want to quit. They've accepted the truth. If you can't endure pain, you can't hold power. Success isn't about what you're willing to do when it's easy. It's about what you're willing to endure when it's brutal. And here's where you're getting exposed. You quit at the first sign of resistance. You call it self-care. You call it balance. But deep down, it's weakness. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're really sabotaging yourself. Every time you avoid discomfort, you trade your future for temporary relief. Winners didn't make that trade. They paid the painful price up front, and now they're cashing in while you're left broke, not financially, but mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Let's make it plain. Success is supposed to hurt. Growth is supposed to break you down. Discipline is supposed to sting. If it doesn't, it's worthless. Easy choices give you a hard life. Hard choices give you an easy life. And right now, your life feels heavy because you've been stacking up easy choices for years. Winners deserve everything because they consistently made the hard choices you keep dodging. Stop lying to yourself. Stop telling yourself you'll change without suffering. Stop convincing yourself there's a shortcut. There isn't. The shocking truth is this: the pain you avoid becomes the weakness that owns you, but the pain you endure becomes the strength that defines you. Winners understood that long before you did. They leaned into the fire, and that's why they came out forged like steel. Think about your own life. Every great moment you've had came after pain. Heartbreak, rejection, failure, loss. Those moments hurt, but they shaped you. Now imagine if you stopped running from them and started seeking them. Imagine how much stronger you'd be if you welcomed the discomfort instead of avoiding it. That's the mindset shift winners live by. Pain is fuel, not something to escape. So stop chasing comfort. Stop idolizing ease. Stop thinking the goal is to feel good all the time. The goal is to become unbreakable, and that only comes through embracing what hurts. Winners deserve everything because they mastered suffering. They didn't run, they didn't hide, they didn't numb themselves with distractions. They stared pain in the face and said, "Break me. I'll come back stronger." And they did. Here's your slap of truth. If you're not willing to suffer, you're not willing to win. You can read every book, watch every video, repeat every affirmation, but until you step into discomfort and let it carve you into something tougher, you'll stay exactly where you are. Winners aren't lucky, they're forged in pain. That's why they deserve everything. Winners don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't sit around hoping the timing will be right. They move in chaos. They move in uncertainty. They move when everyone else is frozen by fear, doubt, and hesitation. That's why they deserve everything, because they're willing to act when most people retreat. Action isn't glamorous. Action is brutal. Action is messy. Action exposes you to failure, rejection, ridicule, and loss. But winners understand that action, no matter how imperfect, always beats stagnation. Here's the hard truth. You keep waiting for a sign. You keep telling yourself, "I'll start when it feels right, when I'm ready, when the stars align." Guess what? The stars never align. You'll never feel ready. And that's the difference between winners and everyone else. Winners act without guarantees. They take calculated risks, not reckless ones, but they don't wait for certainty because certainty is a myth. Life doesn't hand out safe bets. Only bold action creates opportunity. You've been living in paralysis disguised as prudence. You call it planning. You call it caution. But really, it's fear. Fear that if you move, you might fail. Fear that if you take a step, the world will laugh at you. Fear that if you commit, you might be wrong. Winners don't ignore fear. They face it. They stare it down and say, "I'll risk being wrong," because action beats inaction every single time. And that's why they rise while you watch, stuck in neutral. Think about the last time you hesitated. The chance slipped through your fingers. Someone else stepped in and claimed it. The opportunity didn't wait. Life doesn't wait. And that's the brutal truth most people never admit. Hesitation costs more than failure ever will. When you fail, you can recover. When you hesitate, the moment is gone, and sometimes it's gone forever. Winners know this instinctively. That's why they move first, strike fast, and dominate while others debate. Here's a reality check. Action is messy. Action exposes weakness. Action makes you uncomfortable. Action demands resilience. And most people hate all of that. They'd rather sit on the sidelines, criticize, and fantasize about winning without lifting a finger. That's why they never deserve anything. Winners embrace the mess. They thrive in it. They make it their playground. That's how they claim what others dream about. The truth is simple. The world rewards execution, not intention. It rewards results, not planning. It rewards courage, not comfort. You want the glory? You want the freedom? You want the respect? Then you must be willing to act relentlessly, even when it hurts, even when it's inconvenient, even when it seems impossible. That's what separates winners from the rest. That's why they deserve everything. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for validation. Stop waiting for a sign from the universe. Winners don't wait. They move, they risk, they fail, they learn, they rise. And because they never pause, never hesitate, never surrender to fear, they claim everything they set out to take. Meanwhile, you sit frozen, wondering why the world isn't fair. The world is fair. It rewards action. And right now, your inaction is the only reason you don't have what they do. Here's the takeaway you need to internalize. Bold action builds momentum. Momentum builds power. And power creates opportunity. Hesitation builds nothing. Waiting builds nothing. Complaining builds nothing. Winners deserve everything because they never let fear dictate their decisions. They strike first, they strike hard, they strike consistently. That's why the prizes are theirs and the sidelines are yours. So ask yourself this: are you going to keep hesitating, hoping life will hand you a gift, Or are you going to act with the relentless determination of someone who knows the only way to win is to move first, strike fast, and never stop? The choice is yours. Winners already made theirs. Here's the unvarnished truth. Winners don't wait for permission, and they don't look for guarantees. They don't ask, will this work? They don't hope someone else will clear the path. They take responsibility for the outcome and act decisively. That's why they deserve everything, because they assume ownership when others run from accountability. Most people refuse to own their failures, and as a result, they never own their victories either. Accountability is a brutal mirror. It forces you to see your excuses, your laziness, your distractions. It forces you to face the ugly truth. Nobody else is responsible for your life. Winners embraced that truth long ago. They stopped blaming circumstances, stopped whining about setbacks, and stopped waiting for someone to save them. They understood that the only way to get what they wanted was to stop waiting and start doing. That's why they deserve everything. They dared to be responsible when everyone else shrank. Here's a harsh reality. Most people fail not because they lack talent, not because they're unlucky, but because they avoid accountability. They pass the blame. They shift responsibility. They rationalize their failures with excuses, illusions, and justifications. But winners don't. Winners stare reality in the face, take the hit, and figure out how to win anyway. They don't fold when the pressure comes. They don't shrink under criticism. They own every outcome, and that ownership is the foundation of every reward they claim. Think about it. Every time you shrug off responsibility, you shrink your power. Every time you blame someone else, you hand them control over your life. Every time you rationalize your failure, you teach yourself to fail again. Winners understood that control is everything. They understood that to deserve everything, they must first claim authority over themselves, their decisions, and their actions. That's how they turn chaos into opportunity. That's how they turn obstacles into stepping stones. The shocking truth is this: accountability is uncomfortable. It's humbling, it's exhausting. It exposes your weaknesses and forces you to confront your failures head-on. Most people avoid it like the plague. That's why they remain average. That's why they remain spectators in their own lives. Winners, on the other hand, embrace accountability like armor. They use it to sharpen their edge. They use it to learn faster, move smarter, and act stronger. And that's why they deserve everything, because they've proven to themselves repeatedly that they can handle reality unfiltered. You've been waiting for a life that aligns with your comfort. You've been hoping for a path that doesn't demand sacrifice. That's why you haven't achieved what you want. Winners don't wait for comfort. Winners thrive in discomfort. Winners take responsibility for outcomes, even when it's messy, inconvenient, or painful. They don't ask for life to make sense. They don't plead for easy circumstances. They own what comes at them and turn it into advantage. That's why they deserve it all, because they can handle it, and you can't yet. Here's the mindset shift you need. Stop avoiding responsibility and start owning your life. Stop blaming conditions, people, or bad luck for your situation. Stop thinking you can get the rewards without carrying the weight. Winners carry the weight willingly. They welcome the responsibility because they know it's the only way to earn everything they desire. And the moment you do the same, the moment you stop hiding behind excuses and start claiming ownership, you step onto the path that separates spectators from victors. Remember, accountability isn't punishment, it's power. Every failure you own, every mistake you admit, every outcome you control strengthens you. Winners deserve everything because they've mastered this truth. They've built their lives on action, discipline, and ownership. They don't ask for permission, they don't wait for certainty, and they don't evade responsibility. They own it all. And that's exactly why the prizes are theirs, not yours. So the question is simple. Are you going to keep blaming, waiting, and rationalizing, or are you going to take full ownership of your life and start acting like someone who deserves everything? Winners have already made their choice. Now it's time for you to make yours.